So, I hope you remember who I am. My name's Francesco Volstad. Okay, and this is the second lecture on presentation skills. Okay, so we have 4 workshops in all, and these are the main points we will cover. Okay. In lecture 1, we looked at the differences between English and Japanese presentations. We talked about using PowerPoint and handling questions. Okay. That was last week. I'll revise that in a minute, but just to remind you, today we're going to look at structuring your presentation. I think this is one of the most valuable things I can teach. Okay? What I will teach you today is not in any textbook. So last week I said, if you don't remember, look on the internet. Okay? This week, that's not true. These are mainly my ideas. They are ideas that I have got from different places. Okay? So I don't claim to have created these ideas, but I do claim to have brought them together to use for presentations and essays. So far, they have been very successful. Okay? So my students use them to write papers for very top-level journals in science. I have taught them here for presentations year after year, and at least I like the results. Okay? So I hope you do too. So we'll look at structuring your presentation, and I'll talk about something called chunking. Okay? Finally, if we have time this time, we'll talk a little bit about body language. Body language will only ever be a small topic. Okay? Next week, we're going to talk about analogy and metaphor. Okay? Analogy and metaphor means how to explain things using other things. How to say A is like B. Okay? And we will talk about how to use analogy and metaphor mainly to avoid or explain technical vocabulary. So that will be next week. And finally, in the 4th session, this is a bit of a change from previous years. We're going to have a whole session for you to practice your presentations. Okay? So we're going to start the practice today. We're going to practice again next week, and then we're going to do a lot of practice on the final week. Okay? So really hitting the point that practice makes perfect. Okay? It doesn't matter how much I explain something to you. If you don't use it, if you don't make it your own, then it won't work for you. So that's a little overview of our schedule for these 4 weeks. To review last week, you might remember this slide. The first topic we talked about was what is a presentation. We looked at the difference between writing a paper, like you did for this presentation competition, this symposium, and making a presentation. You might remember I talked about who is in charge, who has control. That's a very big difference between a paper and a presentation. In a presentation, the listener is not in control. So it's your job as the presenter to present so that they can understand. And we're going to talk about how to do that today. We looked at the difference between poster and PowerPoint presentations. Okay? This is just in the future in case you do a poster presentation, where you have a poster around the room. And we looked at the difference between English presentations and Japanese presentations. Okay? Especially talking about how English presenters tend to be more active, move around more. English presentations are usually more interactive. You talk to the people. Okay? And if we get time today, and talk about body language, we'll look at some ways you can encourage that. Okay? Different kinds of body language make for different kinds of reactions. Okay? The main part of last week's presentation was what I call the basics. Okay? PowerPoint size for your fonts, color, background, all of those kind of key points. Okay? And we previewed today's topic about structuring, and I talked about how your introduction, main body, and conclusion can be based on this idea of having a big picture and details. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay? In the basics, the main things I talked about were the outline. Okay? So you've seen several outline slides already, okay, showing what you are going to talk about. It's like a table of contents for your presentation. We talked about slide structure, okay? A little bit about where to put things, about fonts, what size to make the letters. Okay? 18 is the smallest you want to use. Usually PowerPoint adjusts the size automatically. The more you write, the smaller the size gets. Okay, that's useful. If the size gets smaller than 18, you have written too much. Write less, the size will get bigger. Color. You might remember some colors are just banned. They are not okay. Yellow. Yellow is a terrible color. Nobody can see it. Okay? Backgrounds. Once again, I'm using a simple white background. Okay? Talked about using graphs. What kind of graphs should you use? How detailed should the graph be? Okay? Remember, this is quite a large room. When you do your presentation, it will be 4 or 5 times longer to the back. Okay? Of course, you will have a large projector, but I think it's about this size, not so different. I'm just trying to remember, but it's, can you remember? Up on the wall in the clock tower, this is quite a large size. I don't think the clock tower's screen is much bigger. About this size maybe. A little bigger? Lots bigger? Twice the size? Not sure?
Actually, it's bigger
Bigger than this one. Okay. So imagine if the clock tower's room is twice the length of this, the screen needs to be twice the size. If it's 3 times, screen needs to be 3 times the size. 4 times the size. It is not 3 or 4 times the size, I guarantee that. So you do have to be careful about the size of your fonts and the color of your fonts. That's important. When you use a graph, make it simple. Spelling and grammar. When you are giving your presentation and answering questions, some English mistakes are acceptable. We don't expect you to be perfect at English. That's not true for your slides. They should be perfect. Okay? Check them. Make sure there is no mistakes. Conclusions. Okay? Your conclusions should be simple and strong. Okay? You don't want to have a whole lot of points on your slides. Your conclusions should just be key, simple points. And finally, you should have a slide for questions to remind yourself about what you're doing. So this is just a review of last week. Okay? Specifically last week we talked about question types. Okay? And I said, be careful, some questions you have to answer. If you get basic questions about your topic, you need to answer that. the judges will give you a bad mark if you try to avoid that kind of basic question. Okay? Some questions are important questions, but the answer is either too long or too difficult, too technical. In that case, my suggestion is that you show you know the answer. This is because it's a competition. Okay? You want to show I know the answer. Give a short answer that says, yes, I know the answer. Even if it's very technical. Okay? Then invite the questioner to talk to you after the presentation. Some questions you don't have to answer. Some questions are like, what if something changes? If your presentation is about Shakespeare, what if Shakespeare were alive today? You can say, well, that's an interesting question, but I don't have time to answer that now. You don't have to try. Okay? Knowing what kind of question it is takes practice. Okay? I can't teach it to you. You need to think about the questions, practice. Give your presentation to someone, have them ask questions. Luckily, we can do that today. Okay? So, today we're going to move on to structuring your presentation. How do you design your presentation? Well, my suggestion is think about the way people learn. Okay? Too many people think of their presentation as a speech. They think about how they should talk, what information they should put on the PowerPoint slides. Those are important questions, but first you should think about what is it you want people to learn, to remember from your presentation. How can you help them to learn or remember that information? Okay? Think about your audience before you think about yourself. Once you have thought about your audience, then you can start to make your presentation. Basically, what I'm saying is stop trying to give a speech, start trying to be a teacher. Think about what do you want them to remember. Think about how they can remember that. Now, your presentations are 5 minutes plus 5 minutes of questions. This is too short. Okay? Usually, when you're thinking about speaking English, 5 minutes sounds like a long time. Oh no, I have to talk English for 5 minutes, no! But when you're giving a presentation about an important topic, you will really notice 5 minutes is short. It will be very important what you don't say. You will have many, many things to say, and you will have to cut some things. Don't cut your introduction. Okay, we'll get onto this further. But I would suggest you introduce yourself for 10 to 20 seconds. Hello, my name is Francesco Volstadt. I work at Kyoto University and Ritsumeikan University, and I'm an advisor at Nara Women's University. I teach English and academic writing, and I teach presentation skills and English for biology students. That's more than 20 seconds, right? It's quite hard. 10 to 20 seconds to introduce yourself. 30 to 40 seconds to introduce your topic. Okay? What are you going to talk about? Now, we'll come back to this, but remember, your introduction is your big picture. One of the most common mistakes that I see in presentations and papers and essays is that there is no big picture. Okay? As I get more and more experience as a teacher, and as I get more and more busy, I have less and less time to bother with bad presentations and bad essays. If you don't give me a big picture, I don't care anymore. I'm not going to listen. I'm busy. It takes so much work to try and make the big picture for myself. I'm smart, I can do it. Why should I? It's rude. Why are you making me work? If you don't give me a big picture, I'll play with my cell phone. Okay? When students give me an essay and they don't tell me why I should read the essay, don't give me a big picture that says, this is why this is important, I assume it's not important. I teach 160 students. Each one writes me an essay. That's 160 pages to read for just one day's teaching. If you can't tell me why to read the page in the first couple of sentences, I'm not going to. The start of your essay must tell people why. Don't cut your introduction. 5 minutes is too short. Don't cut the introduction. Next, your main body. You will only have 3 minutes. This is what you usually think of as your presentation. You don't have 5 minutes, you have 3 minutes to make your presentation. And that means basically you can only have 3 main points. If you try to do more than that, it's almost impossible. Finally, you have 1 minute to make a conclusion. Remember, your introduction and your conclusion are really important. Don't cut them. I know this makes your main body too short. You have 5 minutes for questions. Sometimes you can cheat and use some of your question time to answer a bit more about your presentation. Wow, that's a really interesting question. I think the answer is da, 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 da. And that also is related to something it's not really related to or is only slightly related to. Talk a bit more about your presentation. Be careful, don't do it too much, but you can be a bit sneaky. This is my suggestion for how to break down your presentation. I don't assume you will be exactly the same. Okay? It's just an idea. But once again, my warning is, make sure you have a good introduction and a good conclusion. When you start to make your presentation, you have to think about your audience. Okay? And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. How to structure your presentation so that it fits your audience. Now, there are many, many people listening to your presentation. But in particular, let's think about the judges. That's how you win. Okay? The judges are very professional. If you think about the judges, you will make a good presentation. Okay? And other people will like it too. So this just makes it easier. Having talked to the judges and having been a judge for the last couple of years, some of the main things we are thinking about is the content, the presentation, and the slides. Okay? So we want to make sure that you have an interesting new idea or a reformulation of an old idea. Okay? So when you give your presentation, we want to make sure that the content is worth listening to. If you can give a presentation where you have worked in some of the small seminars, maybe you have worked very closely with a professor or with some senior students, it does not have to be your personal research. Okay? But it shouldn't just be a case of you standing up the front and giving research off the internet. Okay? If you've been working with a small group of people, then you can present that research. That's one good way to do it. Okay? New ideas and relevance. Why is this important? Okay? Those are important things to think about. We also think about the presentation, the way you stand up the front, the English you use. Pronunciation is a big issue. When I teach English normally, I don't tell people to worry about pronunciation. Okay, last week I said, German people like to speak with a German accent. They don't want to be American. I don't mind if you speak with a Japanese accent, but it needs to be easy to understand you. That means that you need to enunciate. You need to speak carefully. Okay? You need to make sure that one word ends and a new word begins. I'm from New Zealand. That's very hard for New Zealanders. New Zealanders like to speak with their mouth like this. We don't like to talk a lot and we don't like to open our mouths. That's impossible to hear in a large auditorium. You need to speak carefully, clearly, and correctly. The best way to practice this, in my experience, is to video yourself. Okay, take a video camera or your cell phone, put it there, talk to it, give your speech to it, watch it, think about what changes to make. Accuracy and fluency is an issue. Accuracy means how many mistakes you make, and fluency means how fast you can talk and how smoothly you can talk. Generally speaking, this is kind of a balance. If you concentrate on being accurate, you will obviously slow down. If you try to speak fast, you will make more mistakes. That's not necessarily true for a speech. You can get good accuracy by writing down your speech, and good fluency by practicing your speech again and again and again. You should not read your speech. Okay? If you are holding up the paper, you are not looking at the people. It's okay to have notes. It's a good idea to have notes. Okay? But you should put the notes down, look up. Look down, look up. That's fine. When you're talking, look at the people in the audience. Body language. Body language is important. Show them that you are making an English speech. Step out. Say hello. Even if that's all you do. You might give your whole speech from behind the podium, from behind the stand, but at least at the start of your speech, come to the front. Show that you are open. Hello everybody. My name is Francesco Volstad, and I'm very happy to see you. Okay? Then you can run away. It's an English speech. It's not a Japanese speech. Let's show them that you know that. Also, we will talk a little bit more about using your hands later on today. Your slides. Make sure you think about the things I taught last week. The colour, the size. Okay? If you are going to use an animation, something that moves, maybe a video of your research, that's great. People like that. Make sure it's not too long. If the main body of your speech is 3 minutes and you have a 2-minute video, you will not win. This is not just a presentation, it's also a competition. You have to show how good you are. Okay? Think about that. When you use such video technology, make sure you have practiced. See what it looks like. Come into this room. Put it on your computer. Look at it through the video. If you stand at the back of the room, can you see the details? Sometimes it looks great on your computer screen, but you can't see it here. Okay? Always check your slideshow. Run through it. Things change, okay, when they go up on the screen. So, a little bit more depth. Your introduction. What do you need to think about? Keep it simple. Your introduction is not the main body of your speech. It's just the big picture, a little outline of your speech. Warm up the audience. You could tell a joke. You can smile. Smile is wonderful. It's a very powerful tool. If you smile at someone, it's very hard not to smile back. Okay? Where are the judges? Usually we talk to the back of the room. The judges are at the front. At least at the start of your presentation, let's look at the judges. Hi. Introduce yourself. Don't jump into your presentation. It gives you time to warm up yourself. Get ready. When you step out onto the stage, you step out, there's lights shining in your eyes and you can't see, and there's all these people there and you think, oh, I want to go home. Yeah. So start talking about something that's, not important. Something that's just a little bit of fun. Hi, my name's Francesco Bolstad, and I really enjoy being here to teach you because I'm from New Zealand, and it's always been my dream to come to Japan. Okay? Something easy. Outline your presentation, but remember to give the big picture first. Okay? This is important. The main body. This is what we call the guts, the important part of your presentation. My first comment is, it's up to you, I'm afraid. I can't tell you what to put here because this is your presentation. Later today, we'll talk a bit more about sequencing, what order to put things in. That's important. And chunking, how big a picture to have things. Next session, we will talk about metaphor. So I do have some hints for your main body, but it's up to you. Your conclusions. Like your introduction, keep it simple. Don't try to do your whole main body again. And make it memorable. That means make it short, make it clear, do something unusual. If people remember your speech, then you'll get a good mark when the judges talk together. And if you're doing a presentation about something academic, people will go home and read your paper. With the questions, the fourth part of your speech, your presentation, you need to be respectful, even if it's a stupid question. Sometimes people ask stupid questions. You can't say, I'm sorry, I don't think that's actually to do with my topic, so I'm not going to answer. You just can't say that. You say, well, I haven't thought about that question. So maybe I can talk to you later. Okay? That's a respectful way, a nice way of saying it's not important. Okay? Show your knowledge. When people ask you questions, you can't just say, I don't know. You can say, well, I don't have the information to answer that, but my guess is, my idea is. Okay? Not just I don't know. And you have 5 minutes. It's good to get several questions, not spend 4 minutes on one question. Okay? So try and be reasonably quick in answering your questions. It takes people time to talk, and they haven't practiced their questions. So they might talk for 30 seconds because they keep going over and over the same question, trying to get it clear in their mind. A good strategy is to repeat their question to make sure you understand. So, you're asking something, something, something. In that case, I think the answer is. Okay? Now, I want to go on to one of the main points for today's structure, and that's about what's called chunking. Now, chunking is the idea that you can think of the same concept at different levels. You can have the details. I know this is a little bit small to see. I'm afraid that it comes off an A4 sheet, so it should be longer. Okay? I'll try and read it out to you and go through it. Okay? So chunking is this idea that if you're talking about a topic, you can have a big picture and you can have details. So we can go from a really big picture, existence, down to extremely detailed information like lug nuts. They are the bits on your car that screw the wheel on. Okay? Now you are probably thinking existence, sonzai, and lug nuts are not related, right? But I can show you that they are. As you move down, you get different levels of the same idea. Existence, well, things that exist move. Movement, a type of movement is transportation. There are different kinds of transportation. You can have buses, boats, cars, planes, trains, walking. If we think about cars, there are different types of cars. Toyota cars and Ford cars. Okay? Within Ford cars, there are different makes of car. Okay? Each car is made up of different parts, like wheels. Each wheel has different areas to it, like the hubcap area, the tyre area. Within the hubcap area, there are the lug nuts. Okay? What this is different levels of specificity. It doesn't come out. Specificity. How specific something is. My tongue is not working today. Specificity. So you want to know how specific you should be. Okay? Very big picture, very detailed. This idea of chunking can be used in many different places. Okay? One place I use it is in what we call conflict resolution. Okay? When people have a disagreement. Imagine you have a family. There is a son a mother and a father. One night, they all want to use the family car, but there is only one car. Okay? The father says, I am going to a party to meet my friends. The party is a long way away, so I need to use the car. The mother says, I have to go back to work. I didn't finish my work and I need to go and get my work. The son says, well, I promised I would meet my girlfriend and go to a movie. I don't want her to see me on my bicycle. There is only one car. Usually we think one person will win, one person will lose. Okay? But we can use chunking to think of other ideas. We can say, well, actually, the car is just an example of transportation. Look, there are many types of transportation. Well, the mother's work is quite nearby. She could use a bicycle. The son wants to use the car to show his girlfriend, that he has a car. But maybe his girlfriend has a car. Maybe she can pick him up. And then the father could use the car to go to the party. Or the father could take a taxi. Okay? If you think at the level of transportation, there are many solutions to this problem. So, being able to chunk, to go up and down levels, is a useful skill. In this case, we are going to use it to make a presentation or to write a paper. How we do that is we start with a big picture for your introduction. Now, often people don't do this. Often people are told that the introduction should say what you will talk about. So they start with a table of contents for the details. Okay? Today I will talk about some research I have been doing at Kyoto University. Firstly, I will talk about the machine we made. Then I will talk about the results we got. Okay? This is detail. I don't want to know the details. I want to know, why did you make the machine? We made the machine to measure radiation levels around Kyoto University. We heard, actually I've rarely heard this, that possibly at the end of World War II, some radioactive material was buried in Kyoto University. Have you heard this? Japan was doing, this is a rumor, I don't know if it's true, there is a rumor that Japan was doing some experiments on making a nuclear bomb. And before the end of the war, they hid the radioactive materials, buried it in the ground at Kyoto University. Wow, that's very interesting. So we made a machine which can take measurements of radioactive levels deep in the ground. Now I'm interested. I have this big picture. Okay? I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm interested. Then you give the details. What kind of machine did you make? How does it make the measurements? How many measurements did you take? Where did you take the measurements? Finally, come back up to the big picture to give your conclusion. So, we found that there is no measurable difference in radioactive levels around Kyoto University, thus concluding that the rumor was not true and that no radioactive materials were buried at Kyoto University. Back to the big picture. How did my details affect my big picture? That's a conclusion. Let's have a look at how this works. Out at Katsura, I work with a group of researchers who are doing research on something called trip channels. Okay? Transient receptor potential channels. Trip channels are an example of ion channels. Okay, an ion channel is a tunnel in the cell membrane, okay, of an animal that allows positively or negatively charged atoms or molecules to move through. Okay? One example of an ion channel is a trip channel. They're a kind of passive channel. Now, this is a specific trip channel. And this is a molecule which activates this trip channel. If I start my presentation at this level, you will be very confused. Okay? Today I'm going to talk to you about inflammatory mediators. Okay? What is an inflammatory mediator? Okay? What is he talking about? Now, if you are a trip channel specialist, this will be okay. Oh, right, inflammatory mediators. Yeah, okay, that's great. But if you are not going to listen. Now, if I start my presentation by talking about life on Earth, okay? All living things on Earth are made up of DNA. Okay? All cells are combined. Then I can go down and I can move down the levels. Everyone is interested in life on Earth. If I start at the cellular versus organism level, biologists are interested, but not economists or anyone else. If I start talking about ion channels, microbiologists are interested. Okay? What I'm trying to tell you is that you have to think, who is your audience? Who are you writing for, or who are you speaking for? If you are invited to give a presentation at a conference of trip channel specialists, start here, sure, no problem. If you are invited to give a presentation at a conference of scientists from different fields, biology, chemistry, physics, maybe you have to start up here. If you are invited to start talking to microbiologists, start from here, that's okay. It's like a funnel. The bigger your original picture, the more people you can get into the funnel. Okay? So, here are some examples that you can chunk. Last week, I talked about CO2 emissions from cows, or actually methane gas emissions from cows. In this case, CO2 emissions and methane gas from cows. What was the big picture? Do you remember? Global warming. Okay. To show you that you can use this with a literature topic, not just science, Shakespeare's use of the third person in Romeo and Juliet. Okay? Third person. He goes. They eat, but she eats. Okay? Maybe you're looking at how Shakespeare used the third person verbs, or how he used the third person he, she, personal pronouns. What would be your big picture?
English grammar.
Could be English grammar. Yeah, English grammar. Or it might be a little bit more specific than that. It might be how English grammar has changed over time. But English grammar, yeah, okay. the cost of a bowl of rice at Kyoto University's cafe or shokudo. What is the big picture?
Demand and supply. Demand and supply.
Ah, demand and supply. Okay, yeah, could be an economic topic. That's still probably in the middle, demand and supply. What about we go one higher? Cost of living for Kyoto University students. Okay, something like that. Okay. Now, world peace. We don't really need to go higher. We need to go lower. If you always talk about world peace, it's very difficult for you to do a good presentation or to do good research. If you go to your professor and say, I would like to do research on world peace, he or she will say no. That's a common problem for students. Their research topic is too big picture. Okay? Everybody wants to know about world peace, but if you're doing a master's or a doctorate, you need to get specific. What can you research? So what are some specific ideas about world peace?
GDP of the world.
Oh, okay, GDP of the world. Okay. Or differences between countries. What about making money? This is maybe in the middle. You can go up or down. How could we go up from making money?
Human society.
Okay, human society. Different systems of society or something. How could we go down?
Marketing by the internet.
Okay, marketing by the internet. That's one way of making money. Great. Finding a life partner, someone to marry, someone to live with. How do we go up?
Human life.
Human life? Happiness? Could be, yeah. Okay. What are some specific examples?
The problem of civil law.
Problem of civil law. Wow, interesting. Your examples are very different to what I thought about. There are many different ways you can go, and that's great, that's fine. So, what about your topics? Let's hear what they are. Okay? What is your big picture? What are the details you want to explain? And what conclusions can you make about the big picture from your details? Okay, take a couple of minutes to write down the answer to these three questions for your presentation topics. here are some things that might help you. When you think about your introduction, think, what is the big picture? What is your research a part of? Okay, if you think that your research is one piece in a puzzle, what is the whole puzzle? Perhaps your research is a flower, right? What is the whole picture? Another question is, why is this research important? Why is this topic important? That's what an introduction is about. When you think of the main body, you need to think specifically about what details do people need to know. Because you only have 5 minutes, 3 minutes for the main body. So there are some things you can't tell people. So what do they need to know? What are your key points? And if you did some research, if it's scientific or experimental, how did you do the research? What was your method? In your conclusion, how do your results from research or your key points, if you are arguing a topic, sometimes if you are a law student, you don't do research. It's a logical argument. In that case, what are your key points and how do they relate to the big picture? Okay, you have a big picture. What is the relationship between what you found out, what you thought about, and the big picture? And finally, in your conclusion, you have a chance to give some ideas about further research. What if something changed? What if something were different? So, let's take some time to hear people's answers. To start off with, let's just ask, what is the big picture? What is your research about?
Big picture,
Yeah, big picture.
aging society.
Aging society, okay. This is a very important problem, especially in modern Western societies. Japanese society, New Zealand also. In the newspaper today, they're talking about the retirement system and aging society. How much money do we give to old people? How can we get the money? Right, interesting. Important idea for everyone, right? So your funnel is big enough to get people listening. Okay? What's your big picture?
About Japanese professional baseball.
Japanese professional baseball. What is Japanese professional baseball part of?
New reason of decreasing the number of home runs.
The decreasing number of whole runs. But what I'm talking about going one bigger. You see, everyone in the room will retire. So everyone in the room is interested in this, but not everyone likes baseball. Some people like baseball, some people don't. If you can go 1 or 2 steps higher, you can get a larger audience.
About home run.
I think that's 1 step lower. For example, baseball is an example of professional sports. Professional sports are related to health. Professional sports and professional sports people are related to role models. Okay? It's important for young children to have role models in modern society. unfortunately, in recent years, the number of home runs that Japanese professional baseball players have hit has decreased. This means more and more young Japanese children begin to watch American baseball and forget about the role models they have at home. It's important for us to look at this and see how we can fix this problem so that Japanese children are able to focus on homegrown Japanese role models. I'm not telling you to make your presentation about that. I'm just saying that will get you a bigger audience than simply talking about baseball. I don't like baseball. I'm from New Zealand. I like rugby. As soon as you tell me you are talking about baseball, cell phone comes out. He's going to talk about baseball? Okay, well, when he gets to rugby, I'll listen again. Okay? But if you tell me you're talking about role models, wow, I mean, every country has role models. In New Zealand, they're rugby players. But in Japan, they're baseball players. But maybe your information about baseball players I can use for rugby in New Zealand. You understand? If you think about a bigger topic, more people listen. Sometimes this is too difficult. You don't have enough time. Okay? I'm not telling you all to do exactly what I say. I'm giving you examples to let you think about that. Okay? Big topic?
Amongst educational industry.
Educational industry. Oh, educational industry is only for teachers. You are talking about the future of Japan, right? If we don't teach our children, there is no future for Japan. Have you ever heard a politician talk about education? Politicians don't talk about the educational industry. They talk about the future of Japan. Okay? When a politician stands up, he will tell you the children are our future. It's important that we organize the educational industry to support our future. And then he talks about the educational industry for 1 hour. There's no children. There's all economics. But politicians don't just want teachers to vote for them. They want everyone to vote for them. What is your topic?
Human life in society.
Human life in society. This is very big. Bring it down one more.
Platonic love in society. Platonic love in society. Love. Students love.
Students love.
Love relationship.
Love relationship. Okay. So, give me a bit more detail so I know. We are still very high up, you see, so I'm not sure.
Love relationship in university students.
Wow, okay. So, your topic is love and human society. I mean, that's everyone already. Yeah, we know that everybody is interested in love and sex. I'm a biology teacher, and I can tell you that all the people who were not interested in having children, they are dead. Their children don't exist. So we know that these kind of topics will get everyone. Okay, big picture.
How to make good terms on
Needs to be louder. Practice now. Deep, loud voice.
how to make good terms on other people by using nicknames.
How to make what on other people? By using nicknames?
Make good terms on
Good terms. How to make good friendships with people. Okay, so you start off with a big picture, but too fast into the small picture. So how to make relationships with other people is your topic. Okay? How to create friendships is your topic. Everybody wants to create friendships. Some people don't like nicknames. Everybody wants friendships. Okay, big topic.
People who work too hard.
People who work too hard. Well, in Japan, that's pretty much got everyone, right? Even at that level. But you can look at having a better life. Okay? How to create a better life. And problems with working too hard. Okay? Something like that. Big topic?
Children's interest in living things.
Children's
Interest in living things.
in living sense. What does that mean?
Especially insects.
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 Children's interest in insects seems very specific, very detailed. I think, for example, children and the natural world. As Japan gets into the future, children are becoming more and more distanced from the natural world. Many people are worried about this. Children only interact with video games. They don't go outside to play. Okay? As an example of this, we can look at children's interest in insects. Okay? One more time, let me say this very clearly. I am not suggesting the topics for your presentation. I'm playing with your topics. I hope that by playing with your topics, you will get some ideas and you think about that and you will design your own topic. Okay? The bigger your picture, the more you can funnel in to your topic. Okay? That's very important. I'll show you. I'll show you a couple of things about this that are important. We are using a big picture details model. Okay? Now, the introduction, remember I showed you this last week, is up here. The body is down here. And the conclusion is up here. Now, there are a couple of things you have to be careful about. Remember when I talked about chunking, I had many steps. Okay? You need to have a slope. You cannot go from your big picture down to the details suddenly. Okay? I'm here to talk about life on Earth. The interesting molecules that we looked at today were H2O. What? It doesn't make sense. Okay? You really need to come down slowly. Okay? You need to go up slowly to your conclusion. Within each part of your presentation, you will have many pieces of speech. If you're writing, you'll have many paragraphs. If you look at what a paragraph is, a paragraph looks like this too. When I teach students how to write paragraphs, I teach them each paragraph. You know, a paragraph is about 7 to 12 sentences about one main idea. That's a paragraph, right? Now, each paragraph starts with an introductory sentence. It has some supporting sentences, and it has a concluding sentence. So what that means is that along all of this, it's all kind of built up like this. I think you get the idea. Have you ever seen the Russian dolls, where you take the head off and inside is another doll, and then you take that off and inside and they look the same but smaller? Okay, this is the idea I'm trying to get across to you. Each paragraph starts with a topic sentence. That's the big picture for the paragraph. Then it has some details, some supporting sentences, and finally it has a concluding sentence, which is big picture again. Slowly, you could say that these get like this, okay? And on the other side, you might imagine that they are like this, and that's how you climb up or down, okay? This is just one way of thinking about it. Okay, finally, I'm just going to skip a whole lot of bits here. I want to take just a couple of minutes to talk about body language, and then I am going to get you to practice your presentations for 5 minutes each. Okay. Now this will be very quick. We're going. So, body language. I don't want to give you too much detail to try and remember. What I do want to say is that English speakers use their hands. Okay? And if you watch some really good speakers, you will see some good strategies. Okay? Some basic closing off movements make people distrust you. You want to stick with reasonably open movements. When you move one hand and not the other, it seems like you are not agreeing with yourself. If you move your hands together, it seems like you are telling the truth. If you close off, it doesn't. Okay? So there are some simple do's and don'ts for body language. Some good strategies and some bad. Here are the really simple things that you want to make sure you pay attention to. You need to keep eye contact. While I'm talking, I move my eyes around the room. If you're on a big stage and there are many, many people, you don't get a chance to look at everyone in the room. But people think you are looking at them. If I look at the door, these people think I am looking at them, but really I'm talking to the door. I love the door. The door is so great. But the people in this area think I'm talking to them. Over here, there is an interesting sign on the wall. If I look at that sign, anyone in this area thinks I'm talking to them. Okay? To do that, you cannot read your speech. You want to emphasize points. This is very important. Listen to me now. And you want to make sure that you're not cutting people off. Some people have a tendency to wring their hands when they're nervous. So you can do some careful movements. Always smile. Be careful about touching your face too much. You're standing in front of many people. You start to get nervous. Is there something on my face? But it's very hard to give a speech while you are doing this. Okay? Check your face in the mirror before you give your speech. Then relax. Okay? But smile a lot. Check the mirror. Do you have something in your teeth? Move around. Okay? If you stand still for the whole speech, it seems not so good. Okay? you want to walk around. At least at the start of the speech, you might want to come forward and introduce yourself, say hello. Then you can come back, do some of your speech, move out a bit to point with your laser pointer, or come out at the end, whatever you like. But don't do all of the speech standing still. Okay? I know this is really simple. I know I could give you some detailed points about what kind of body language to use. But the reality is, just like you, I have to make choices about what to include and what to cut. And I don't have enough time. So remember, some types of body language make points, some are open. When you're asking for questions, would anybody like to give me a question? Is very different to, would anybody like to give me a question? Okay. Think about your body language, that's all. Okay. Now, we have a little bit more than 10 minutes, that's 5 minutes each way, for you to start practicing your presentations. So what I want to do is get you into groups of 2 people. One person will stand up and they will talk about their presentation. I don't expect you to be perfect. This is your first try. Think about your big picture. Think about the details you want to give. Think about what you will make as your conclusion. That's all. Cover those 3 points. Then 1 or 2 minutes for the other person to ask 1 or 2 questions. And swap. And we'll finish. Can I ask at least one of you to come and join, because we have an uneven number. So we can go 1, 2, 1, 2. And then maybe if you come down the back, and 1, 2. Okay, one person stands up, one person listens. Ask 1 or 2 questions, swap. Can we spread out to use the whole room? Some people come to the front, some people go to the back. Use the 4 corners. So here is okay, and at the back. Okay, let's go.